So your setup for this session is laying on your back with your legs bent. You're going to check in with your alignment, turning your toes apart and bringing the heels into line. You definitely want to have started that with the inner heels touching and the inner big toes touching, as well as the inner knees. Just so that you can establish that feeling of having the same distance between the feet as you do between the knees as there is between the two front hip bones. The other thing I want you to begin to notice today is what points of contact do you have with the floor? We always start with the back of the head, and that may or may not be supported with a head cushion. But just notice the occiput, the back of the skull, and its connection down into the ground. You want a feeling of let go, heavy, especially with the eyes and the throat. If you move down the body now with your arms beside you, I want you to think about what sort of imprint are you making on the floor with the shoulder blades. If you move down to the very base of the shoulder blades, how do your bottom ribs feel? Do you get a sense of them connecting with the floor, or do they feel quite light against the mat? Just notice what you have. And this is more of a task of where am I? So rather than feeling that you must push the head into the floor, you must send the back ribs down into the mat, just notice what you have. You're then going to move down your body and you're going to consider the pelvis. Now, we've done quite a lot of work with pelvis movement, rocking it forwards and back and rocking it sides to side, and we're going to advance that a little more in a moment. But in order to do that, you do need to figure out where you are to begin with. So notice just being here without tilting forward and back, without tilting side to side. What do you sense is your imprint of pelvis into floor? Is there more weight one side than the other? What have you got? And then the other thing, the final landmark are going to be your soles of your feet. And we've already touched a little on this, but just notice whether there's any bias, foot to foot. Notice whether there's any bias inside, outside of foot. Now we're returning to the pelvis and we're going to start to build upon this forward and back motion. And to do that, if you have a mini ball, we're going to use a mini ball. The ball is slightly deflated, it's not fully blown up. And you're going to place it underneath the pelvis. Now, don't worry if you don't have a ball, you can still do the full sequence. But perhaps you won't get the same noticing and comparisons after you've completed the sequence as you would with the pelvis elevated. What you're looking for is a sense of pelvis being fully supported by the ball. Notice in the positioning that it's not quite in the lower back, it is definitely more lower end of spine. And what you sense there with the pelvis down on the mat there, through the centre of the pelvis, you're hoping to have replicated here now with that support. The other thing, if you do have your pelvis on the ball, that you might notice is that it creates a little bit of instability. That's a good thing. It means that internally some stabilisers have to start to switch on and flicker on just in order to give you more stillness the longer the period you stay on the ball. So recapping movements we've already done, you're going to start to tilt the pelvis towards the rib cage and tilt the pelvis away from the rib cage. And you're going to feel that the movement possibly feels larger. Again, notice the repositioning, the reorganising internally might be a little bit of a wobbly feeling as you're tilting forward and back. You definitely want to feel that you can tilt in both directions. If you feel a little bit stunted in either direction, then move the ball a little bit higher or move the ball a little bit lower in order that you can feel that the tilting action in each direction is equal in size. Feels like you're doing the same amount of work in both directions. After you've done this last tilt away from you, I want you to think about settling the pelvis somewhere in the middle of those two ranges, knowing that it might feel different to how it is when you're on the floor. And then you can move your hands to your two front hip bones. And we're going to begin to do the side to side tilting action that we've been building on. And what you might notice is that their pelvis feels like it swings a little more. That would be fine. That you don't really have to work so hard sending something down. But you are continuing to tilt to one side and come back to a level, a position as you can. And you are continuing to monitor any movement through the knees. So as we built on last week, there is a sense, or you can have a sense of legs, but the leg action feels like the leg moves away from you rather than any side-to-side movement of the pelvis. What we're going to add with this feeling of both support and instability created by the ball is we're going to add these movements together. So side to side being two different movements and forward and back being two different movements. And this is bringing you into something called pelvic clock. You want to imagine you have a dial on the front of the pelvis here with the 4 main points of your clock face. You're going to think about towards the navel and tilting towards the ribs being 6 o'clock, and you're going to think about tilting away from the ribs, sending the pelvis away from you being 12 o'clock. So you can just come back into that 6 and 12 action as you were doing previously. And then if this motion is 6 and 12, if you return to the centre and think about those two dials, you're going to start to tilt the pelvis to number 3. So 3 o'clock would be right hip dropping down, left hip lifting, left thigh bone getting longer, and then coming back to right in the centre. You'd then drop down in the left, and that would be sending the clock face to 9 o'clock and come back to your centre. So as you're tilting and you're dropping into the right, you're now going to think more about the number 3, come back to centre, and then over to the opposite side is going to be number 9. And with that idea now, rather than returning to the centre each time, you're going to think about going around the dial of the clock face. And to start you off, you're going to centre yourself and you're going to rock the pelvis towards number 6. So in old money, that's tilting the pelvis towards the ribs. Once you've tilted the pelvis towards the ribs without bringing it back into the centre, you're going to start to skirt around the edges of the clock face to bring you into a tilt to 9 o'clock. So you've now got your right hip bone lifted and you're dropping down into the left. Continue that idea without passing through the centre and tilt the pelvis away to 12 o'clock. Keep coming round the outer edge of the dial. Feel that the movement's becoming more circular rather than cross-like. Drop down into the right side of the pelvis, that would be 3 o'clock, and then bring yourself back to 6. You're going to circle the pelvis round once more to 9, to 12, and to 3. And you're going to find that the movement doesn't have to be large, it could be quite small. But it's a little like the sacrum acts as the pivot of a wobble board now. And the circular dial on the front of the pelvis is slanting in all directions. If you bring your pelvis back to center, we're going to do that same movement, but you're going to do some continuous circles in the opposite direction. You're still going to tilt the pelvis to number 6 to begin with, but then you'll drop to number 3, take yourself to number 12, and then across the dial to number 9, and so on. So the pelvis moves to number 6, over to number 3, and remember you're skirting the edges of the dial of the clock. There's no sense of coming into a center point whilst you cross over to the other side. Definite circular motion, and with that you're going to experience that the lower back is becoming more and more mobile. And as I said, it doesn't have to be a huge movement in order to come back to being mobile. But you are going to bring the pelvis back to a center position. Notice how that feels for you, and then I'd like you to take the ball away if you've been using a ball. Now, resting the pelvis back down on the floor now, if you have been using a ball, heightens your awareness of where your center is. It's going to be very obvious returning, certainly where your sacrum bone is, that top section of your pelvis that fuses both halves together. It's also going to be quite obvious for you as to whether you have some space in your lower back. Are you still managing to now be in the middle of your clock now that you've returned? And you're going to use that awareness and figure out where that is for you, or with your pelvis back down on the floor, and you're going to come into your femur arcs. As you breathe out, stand down into one foot and float one knee. Did you manage to stay in the center of your clock? Inhale with your leg raised and exhale to bring the leg back down again. Now this might be a slightly different variation to what you've done in class previously. Exhale for your down to float. We inhale here and we're looking to maintain without bracing, and exhale to come back. It's the same version we've done in the last 2 sessions. Breath in at the top and breath out to return. You're using your breath to feel heavy with the ribs, with the foot, and then light in one leg. Inhale when you're up, exhale to return back down again. And last one, down to float up. Breath in when you're up at the top. Trying to finish with an even amount of leg raises each time. Once you're back down again, checking with the pelvis, are you still in the middle of your clock? And you're going to stay in the middle of your clock as we come into some arm arcs. So you'll breathe in to take the arms up and back, and breathe out as you bring the arms all the way down beside you. It's still pretty obvious where the back of the pelvis is. Notice how it feels to move the arms up and back. You can always reduce this range of movement if you need to. Allow the shoulder blades to move behind you. Your bottom ribs, they're still going to be connected to the floor. See if you can keep them down there, but allow for some shoulder movement. This will be your last one. I'm going to do the full series of arms as we did last week. So you'll take your fingers to the ceiling and come into open and close. Breathing in as you open the arms out to the side, and breathing out as you bring the arms back up towards the ceiling. Inhaling through your nose and exhaling through the mouth to take the arms back to the ceiling. Breath in and breath out. And you can think about a breathing exercise on its own where you inflate the whole rib cage, deflate the whole rib cage as you close the arms. A couple more of these, opening and closing. And then after you've done this last one, your third part of the series would be your shoulder drops. So you'll take a breath in, and as you breathe out, backs of the shoulders move away from the spine, fingertips reach up a little more, and then inhale, backs of the shoulders head back down. Breath out for an upward movement, and And breath in for a downward movement. And there's going to be some changes, obviously, in the upper part of the spine. Are you able to maintain bottom rib contact with the floor? Are you able to maintain a feeling of being in the center of your clock? I do 2 more of these. And after we've done the 2 more, if you've been on a head cushion, just for the start of this session, you're going to slip your head cushion away. And we're going to come into bridging. If you've got the ball again, you're going to take the ball and you're going to use it for bridging. It's just going to go between your knees, again slightly deflated. And it's not necessarily there because I'd like you to draw the knees towards it. It's just there because I want you to notice whether there are any changes as you come up and down your bridge each time. So the arms are going to be beside you, as you know. As you breathe out, stand down into the feet, active in those legs. Hover the pelvis. It's a mini tilt to 6. It's not huge. And you're going to send your knees away from you. Now notice particularly if now you feel a lighter connection to the ball. Can you make sure that you maintain same connection and then in fact your big toes are still down on the floor? As you breathe out, heavy through the back of the head, the throat, upper chest, wide through those ribs and waist to bring yourself all the way back down again. Notice your connections on the ball. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, down with the feet, hovering with the pelvis. Pelvis comes fractionally to number 6 on your clock face, but that's not going to be huge. If you're at the top and you feel you're light in your connection to the ball, could you draw your knees closer and suddenly feel how you're on the insides of your feet more? Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, heavy in the back of the head, the throat, the upper chest, wide through the ribs, and bring yourself all the way back down via a real subtle tilt of pelvis to 6. It's not going to be huge. You want to be aware of the bigger it is sometimes, the more tension it creates through the upper part of the spine. And this is all about letting go, particularly as you're breathing out. This is just going to be your last one to come all the way down here. Again, just noticing whether you've relaxed off the ball up at the top. I don't want you to intentionally squeeze as you move, but I do want you to notice by the time you're up there what your end result was. Once you're back down, and take your time if you're not quite, you're going to take the ball away for a moment and grab your head cushion and bring yourself into your book opening, so your rotation. Head is going to come on that cushion and arms going to be extended out in front of you. Now, you've done your landmarks at the beginning, noticing the back of the head, the shoulder blades and bottom rib, back of pelvis and soles of the feet. And it's as if you still have those landmarks in line with each other every time you come to lay on your side. So you can use that as you set yourself up. Take a breath in. Then as you breathe out, you'll open your top arm, drop your head into your cushion. Inhale when you're open. And as you exhale, keep following the arm and bring yourself all the way back to your closed position. So for this version today, I want you to be really aware of how you've stacked your hips. Can you rotate only to the point where you can keep that top hip above the bottom hip? And as you breathe out, you'll bring yourself all the way back. Inhale to prepare and exhale to open each time. Top hip is staying stacked. Inhale when you're open there, and then exhale to close. You're just going to do one more. Feel free to keep going, so if you feel like there's still some release work to be done through the spine, it might feel a little tight through the front, the side, or even in the back of you, you could keep going. Otherwise, Once you've come to your closed position next time, you're going to make yourself over to the other side. Again, line yourself up as if you are on your back, and your landmarks that we covered at the beginning of the session are in one straight line with each other. Take a breath in when you're ready, and then as you breathe out, you'll open that top arm, heavy head into cushion. Can you keep your pelvis and your hips stacked? Breath in when you're open, and breath out to bring you back to your closed position. Inhaling and exhaling to move. Breath in when you're open, and breath out to bring yourself back. Inhale and exhale. Breath in when you're open, and breath out. This will be your last one. Exhaling. Keep rotating if you feel you still need to. And then as you exhale, bring yourself all the way back. So from here you're going to bring yourself up to sit. You're also going to bring the blue ball with you. You don't need any cushions for coming back down towards the mat. But what you are going to do is place the ball between your knees, and we're going to use the ball in this position for your assisted roll down and assisted roll up. So again, look at your parallel. The ball's going to help out with the knees. Hands are going to come behind your legs. As you breathe out, the feet are going to push down into the floor slightly, just to start off your tilt of your pelvis to 6 o'clock. And the pelvis will continue to tilt to 6. You keep rolling down through the body. You're going to draw your feet towards you only when you need to. Keep tilting, and bring yourself onto your back. Just notice if you've been able to keep space between your feet. As you exhale, the legs will go forwards, your chin will nod to your chest. Again, maintain contact with the ball. Certainly notice how it feels. You do want to think about your thigh bones staying in parallel. Therefore, you might feel that the ball is connected with a little more firmly each time you roll down and come back up again. Feet are relaxed. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, legs will go, chin nods to chest, elbows wide, to bring yourself all the way back up again. And do one more of these, down and up. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, legs going forward for your last one, to bring you all the way back up again. You're going to take the ball away. You're going to grab your blue band if you've got one, and we're just going to do one roll down with the blue band around the feet. Doesn't matter if you don't have a band at the ready. Your legs are going to be straight out in front of you, and your arms can be straight out in front of you as well. And you can roll down the ones to bring you onto the floor from here. So you'll breathe out, you'll begin to tilt the pelvis towards the ribs. Again, that's tilting to number 6. And you're going to think about really lengthening the pelvis and the lower back up the mat behind you. Now it's only one of these. If you're not sure, you can just come to lay down on your back. And then from there, you might want some support with the back of the head. You're going to take your left leg out of the band and just have your right leg in the band. And you could give yourself a little bit more slack if you wanted to. We're going to come into leg circles with some support here. So you're going to reach into the band and take the leg up towards the ceiling, and your elbows will stay down on the floor. Your right leg comes across the body to the left first. It goes downwards and out to the right and pauses when it's back up towards the ceiling. It's not too huge a movement, but you are looking to draw some sort of circular shape with the heel. After you've done 3, you're going to change direction. The leg goes out to the other side. You're using your elbows on the floor to help give you a little bit of stability. And then same thing in the other direction. After you've done your 3, you're going to stand into the band with the other foot. Nice easy change over. The leg that you just circled will reach out in front of you. Elbows are down on the floor still. This time the left leg comes across the body to the right. It's going to go down towards the other foot and out to the left. Just notice how it feels as it's moving. That's it. See if you can notice what the pelvis is doing as you're moving as well. Just checking in with it. Taking it out to the left to do 3 in the opposite direction. And after you've done this last one, ideally you're going to go back to your right leg, but just for the purposes of you being able to see, I'm going to come over onto my right side. And you're going to straighten both legs out in front of you. You're going to be on your forearm with 2 straight legs. To give you a sense of support, but again, it's going to give you a sense of instability too. You're going to take the blue ball and just place it underneath the waist. Definitely want to feel that it's there. You're pushing down into it. It's giving you some feedback back into the waist, maybe even just under the bottom rib. If you send the feet away from each other, you're going to start to come into something called side kick. This left leg swings forward. You point the foot and the leg swoops back. Flex the ankle to bring the leg forward and point the foot to swoop back. Flexing and pointing. You're moving your leg and you're doing your utmost to be still through the body, so definitely using this hand as much as it feels like I'm using this arm. And then last one, swooping back and resting down. From there, the ball's going to go out in front of me. Again, it's just going to create a little bit of instability. I'm going to bend my legs in again, thinking about back of my body lining up. And I'm going to lay all the way down on the same side, resting on the same arm I just rested on. The ball's going to go out in front of me, and I'm just going to rest my hand on it. Feet move away from each other. There is a little push down on the ball there, and then inhale to swing this left leg forwards and exhale to swoop it back. Feeling a little bit lighter now that it's bent. Same breath pattern as you just did. Inhale to swing the leg forwards and exhale to swoop the leg back. Inhale for your forwards. This is going to be your last one. And after you swoop the leg back here, I'd like you to keep your leg back. You're going to come into a Z sit here. You don't need the ball. But to bring yourself up into your Z sit, you're going to push down into the floor with both hands. The leg that was behind you is going to stay behind you. And you're bringing yourself up into this position. So you've got one leg bent in front of you and one leg out to the side, or you could consider that it was behind you. And in this position, we're going to start to side bend. I want you to think about your clock. And I want you to think about your clock being upright. So as much as you can you think about those 2 front hip bones, 3 and 9, actually being opposite each other. And the same with the 6 and 12, they're above each other. Well, you're kind of upside down, but you want to feel that you're upright. If the position itself is a challenge, and often it can be with the thigh bone that's rotated inwards, you could have your legs out in front of you instead. You could also do this seated on a chair, and it's in the chair video if you wanted to look at that variation. So you're going to inhale, you're going to lift your left arm, and then you're going to exhale and you're going to bend yourself up and over. Take a breath in when you're over and breathe out to come back. So you lift the arm that's opposite to your front leg, inhaling, thinking about length, an arm arc with full use of shoulder. Exhaling, this hand is supporting you coming into your side bend. Breath in when you're over there, and then using the hand to bring yourself back. The hand that you rest on, those fingers are facing away from you, which gives you the opportunity, if you can see, to bring the elbow in tight towards your waist. Inhale when you're here, and exhale to come back. Last one, breath in, breath out to take you over. Inhale when you're over here, and exhale to bring you all the way back. We're then going to do those 3 movements. We're going to do them on the other side. So grab your ball if you have one. Bring yourself onto your forearm with 2 straight legs. The ball's going to come quite low depending on how inflated it is. 2 straight legs. Definitely going to use this hand as much as this shoulder I'm using as well. 2 feet move away from each other. Inhale to swing your top leg forward, and exhale to swing your top leg back. You try and keep your torso still, and you might get a little nudge or 2 based on the fact that the ball is causing some senses of off balance through the body. Use that. Inhaling and exhaling. And do 3 more. Breath in to come forwards. Breath out to swoop back there. In to come forwards. Out. Last one. After you swoop back with this long straight leg, you're going to rest the leg down, take your ball out in front of you, and lay yourself down on the arm that you were propped up on. Looking at your organisation again and checking in with that. Hand just rests on the ball. It's as if you're pointing your fingers up towards the ceiling, so the ball is opposite your chest. Push down slightly to part the knees, and then you'll inhale to swing your top leg forwards, and exhale to swing the top leg back. Breathing in, and breathing out. And breath in, and breath out. The movement's slow and controlled. You're really aware of your torso moving, trying to keep that still. And after you've done 6 or so, when you swing that leg back next, it's going to stay back. You don't need your ball, but you do need both arms because you're going to push yourself up as that leg drops down towards the floor. Once you're up, you'll notice one leg is bent in front of you, the other one is bent side and behind, and we're going to start to side bend in the opposite direction. So you'll lift as you breathe in, and as you breathe out, you'll start to bend. Inhaling when you're over there, and exhaling to bring yourself all the way back up again. Breath in, lots of shoulder movement, lots of length through the upper arm. You can think about your arm arcs and allowing your shoulder blades to move. Breath in when you're here, breath out to come back. Remember, you've got a long sit variation or seated on a chair variation. Inhale when you're over, and exhale to come back. You do 1 more, breath in, and breath out. Inhale when you're over here, and exhale to come back. From here we're going to come into single leg stretch. We're going to prep it in the same way we did last week. You bring your right knee into a bent position, you're in your long sit. Your left hand is going to be on the front of that knee, top of shin, and the other arm is going to go down the ankle. And from there you switch to the other direction. You switch once more. Everything arrives at the same time, the switch of the legs, the switch of the arms. Once you get back to the beginning, you're going to hold that position and you're going to start to tilt the pelvis and roll down towards the floor. As you do so, draw the foot towards you as and when. It's a bit like assisted roll down. Continue to reach the straight leg long and away from you and bring yourself into a curled up position. So I'm heading for bottom ribs to be close to the floor. I'm looking at being in a chest lift position. I'm also going to send this shin up towards the ceiling, and then I'm going to switch. So this is where you need to just work that coordination element and switch. It's a quick inhale before you exhale and switch each time. And you can do a few more depending on how you're getting on. Of course, you don't want it to be overly time consuming so far as the coordination. You're going to do 2 more. And then when you've brought that initial leg back in again, tight ball, lay your head down and bring your feet separately down onto the floor. You could come back onto a head cushion if you wanted to. We're just going to come into side to side here. As you breathe out, sway your legs over onto one side. Inhale when you're here and exhale to bring yourself back to the ceiling. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, sway. Inhale when you're over and exhale, rolling the pelvis back towards the ceiling. So here, if you just cast your mind back to being in the center of the clock. This is very similar to how I described swaying on a real fine strip of the pelvis side to side. You want to feel that you bypass the center of your clock before you sway the legs over to the opposite side. Inhale when you're here and exhale to return. You do a couple more of these, and if you quite like the move again, you could do more. You're definitely heavy through the upper body and the shoulder blades. You want the rotation to be really valuable for mid to lower part of spine. And after you've done this last one, you're going to bring yourself over onto your front. And what we're going to do on our front is really similar to how we've been working, in that we're going to come into a swan position, followed by single leg extension, followed by dart. So you lay yourself on the floor, the hands are going to be on the mat beside you. Do walk your legs away from your pelvis so that you feel that you manage to arrive feeling quite central, equal length in the waist. That's one thing you want to look out for. And palms or hands are on the floor beside you. Notice how the elbows are free. And you could start either with your forehead hovered, which is what I'm going to do today, or you could pop a little cushion underneath your forehead just so that you can bring the back of the head more into alignment than this sort of position, just to start off with. You're going to inhale and create some length through the crown. Hover your forehead, widen your collarbones. Think about sending the chest forwards and up. And then as you breathe out, bring yourself all the way back down again. Inhaling. Collarbones widening. Center of chest shining forwards and up. Elbows are back, and exhale to return. Sensation wise, it's all in the upper back. It's all in the shoulder blades, breathing in. Yes, I can feel that my chest is being pulled wide, but what's supporting me is the whole shoulder girdle. I can even feel a touch of effort. Slightly lower down into where the lats are. That would be good. So width across the front of the body. Elbows are in snug. Watch out for elbows moving out to the sides. Keep them in tight. Gives you a better chance of staying in the back of yourself. This will be your last one. Breath in, back of head, collarbones, chest. And then bring yourself all the way back down again. Single leg extension. Head could just be relaxed, elbows out to the side. You'll reach one leg long and away from you, hovering that foot, and then resting the leg down again. Same thing, breath in, reach leg long, hover, and breath out to come back down again. Inhaling, and exhaling. Breath in, and breath out. 2 more. And last one. And resting down. Arms are going to come straight down to the sides of you, straight arms, palms facing up towards the ceiling. Again, you could have your forehead hovered as a starting position. You may very well feel that the shoulders are rounded. That would be okay. As long as you're aware of how your upper body starts, so that you can then lengthen through the crown of the head, widen from the center of the collarbones outwards. Keep sending the chest forwards and up. Back of head is going to meet all of that, and then exhale to come back down again. Breathe in, lengthen. I still want to be using the back of my body, the upper spine, to get myself here. So I'm looking at shoulder blades, triceps. Hands may or may not hover, they don't have to come with, they could stay where they are. I'll do a couple more of these, breathing in to lengthen. You could keep going depending on what you felt. And last one, breath in. Width. And relaxing yourself down. From there you come into a rounded position. Child's pose for me, or you could come onto your back and bring your knees into your chest if you'd prefer. It's just an opportunity really for the upper spine and the neck to be rounded, as well as the other end of the spine to be rounded, depending on hip and knee flexibility. You might be here and really feel nothing, so really take the idea of being rounded into a shape where you feel that the spine is opening. It also would mean the same that if the feet aren't so flexible, neither are the hips or the knees, and you don't feel like you're very low, or you're here in fact, you just want to notice how much roundness of the spine can you create despite their pelvis being lifted away from the heels. So notice what you have, what sort of feelings you're creating, and you want open and round curved spine as much as you possibly can. From here we're going to come up to stand. And you can think about the quadruped that we've done in the last couple of sessions. And we're going to progress that into walking out onto our hands to bring ourselves into a plank. I'm moving as far back as I can. You're starting in your upright position. And you're going to roll down. So as you breathe out, nod your chin to your chest. Upper body softens, arms relax. Heavy hands and heavy head eventually coming down into this roll down. It's definitely about that roundness of spine that you've just experienced on your knees. in which case you might want to soften through the legs in order to create more roundness somewhere through the lower and bottom middle spine. Once you're down there, you're going to start to walk out forwards on your hands. You're looking at trying to emulate where you would load the hands if you were in hands and knees. Notice how the pelvis lowers down and the back of the head comes up to stand into that push-up position or that plank position. And then send your heels backwards and downwards, and the movement is reversed to bring you back into your roll down with your soft knees. You could keep your hands on the floor if you wanted to for as long as you wanted to. Become accustomed again to being upside down. And as you breathe out, think about lifting the navel and sending the heels downwards in the opposite direction. And that's going to unravel you and bring you all the way back up to stand and start again. Exhaling and nod your chin to your chest. Take your time, heavy hands. Notice how it feels as the back of the body opens. Notice how that openness moves down the spine. If you feel like you get stuck because your hamstrings don't allow you to come further, then definitely soften them, because it's not about your legs, it's about your spine. And then again, you're going to walk forwards. As your pelvis goes down, the back of your head comes up. And you're on a diagonal, you're not truly parallel to the floor, but you are straight in that organisation. Send your heels backwards and downwards when you're ready. Walk back to your feet. I always like to soften my knees at this point and keep my fingertips down, because it gives me more of a sense of being grounded. You know, it can feel precarious to be upside down. And then as you breathe out, simultaneously lift and drop down with the heels. Lift through the navel, and that'll bring yourself all the way back up. One more if you want to, but you might be very happy with 2 of those. Standing roll down, full version. Notice how it feels through the back of the body, nice and relaxed. Let the head go, and let it give the neck some gentle traction. And you could roll yourself back up from there, don't necessarily have to walk out into the plank. You're standing strong. Definitely in your legs, definitely using your feet. And then you'll send your heels backwards and downwards. Walk back to the feet. Soften your knees if you feel you need to there. And as you breathe out, heels push down into the floor, legs straighten, navel lifts up towards the spine, all in unison, to bring you all the way back up to stand. Notice how you feel. We're done, everyone. Take care.